Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and yes, today I'm able to talk to you, and it's been a while coming, to be honest, all about the game that features this geezer, because I only gone and bloomin' played it at the Pokémon Company UK Limited Europe. Yeah, I was invited down to play Pokémon Sword and Shield, and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about it, because I've played it before, but when I played it before, it was a very sort of self-contained thing. It was just playing the water gym, basically, and it was a bit dull, to be honest. You know, it's like the least interesting part of Pokemon Sword and Shield is it's just a gym, just like all the other Pokemon games I've had. But now I've played a good old bit, a good old chunk of that sausage, and I'm going to tell you all about it in however many minutes there are in this video. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Okay, I need to preface this first by saying I played the first 90 minutes roughly of the game. Going up, I did go into the wild area. However, there is a list as long as my arm, and I've got relatively long arms, of stuff that I can't actually talk about. So if I seem a little bit cagey, or I'm just sort of like dancing around the subject and not actually naming a Pokemon, then that's why. So yes, I started the game and, you know, I did the typical spiel of, you know, sort of, oh, you can choose your character, choose what they look like, you know, skin tone, hair color, pretty limited on hair color, actually. I had to go for a very blonde looking chap, which is not me. I'm only sort of semi-blonde. Some say ginger. They need their eyes tested. And it's a very typical start to a Pokemon game. You know, you're in your house and then you got your mum in there. Interesting though, I don't know whether it's going to be different in the North American version, but obviously because, you know, Sword and Shield Galar region is based on the United Kingdom, mothers are referred to as mum rather than mom. I've never liked mom. If you remember Pokemon Sun and Moon, or maybe you're just well aware of it, you may well remember that there was a bit of a sticking point for quite a lot of people in the form of the tutorial, by which is like, it's like the trainer school or something. I can't remember, it's been ages since I played it. And admittedly, when I reviewed it, I didn't really think that much of it, but looking back, great goggly goodness, everyone on the internet is right. That's horrible, that's way too much tutorial. It's so handholdy, takes you through. It's like, do you know how to catch a Pokemon? I'm gonna tell you anyway. Pokemon can use attacks and there's status effects and all that gubbins, and it goes on way too long. And yeah, that kind of thing is good for people who are new to the games and they haven't played them before and they don't really know what's going on. But for people like me who do know what they're doing, it's a massive, massive pain in the ass. And I'm very, very pleased to say that in Pokemon Sword and Shield, the tutorial finally takes a back seat. It's glorious. It definitely still tells you how to do certain things, and it gives you, it definitely doesn't sort of just throw you straight in and not take you through anything. In fact, it's kind of linear to begin with, but it's over way more quickly, and it's less, this is how you do this, this is how you do that. It's less of an information overload. And I don't know how well that's going to work for new players, but for veteran players like myself, great goggly goodness, I am so glad it's here, because I hate being told how to catch Pokemon for like the 20th time in my life. There was one very interesting thing though, and it's something that I forgot until I was thinking about what I'm going to do in this video and thinking about what I'm going to talk about. I just suddenly remembered, and it's brilliant. Basically, during the first encounter you have with your quote-unquote rival, Hop, you have a Pokemon battle. Wow, what a surprise. This is after you've chosen your starter and everything, so, and for some reason, Hop takes the one that's weaker to you. So, for example, I chose Sobble because they said, you probably already know which one you're gonna go for in the real game, so go for a different one. So I was like, mate, I still want to take Grookey. But I chose Sobble because he's the second best. It also meant that I got to kick the nonsense out of Scorbunny, which is never a bad thing. But interestingly, Hop already has a Pokemon. Hop has Wooloo, and so he has Wooloo and the Pokemon, in this case Scorbunny, which is weak to the starter you choose. So you go into the fight and you're like, okay, yeah, and so, you know, you have your Tackle, you have your Growl, or whatever the hell it is, you know, your typical stuff. And so he sends out his Wooloo first, and you're like, ba 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 ba, Wooloo goes bye-bye, and then you get enough experience to level up once there, and that, you know, sort of does teach you that leveling up is a thing, and it does it very early on, which is good. The better thing, though, is that immediately after gaining just one level, my Sobble learned Water Gun, which is more important than it sounds. Naturally, this meant that I could make absolute mincemeat of the Score Bunny, and so, you know, I was using Water Gun because obviously same type attack bonus. I nearly said bias, that's something else. As well as being super effective against Score Bunny and everything, you know, it went down like a sack of something. And, you know, that was very standard, but then afterwards, the champion, who also takes the starter Pokemon, use your brain to figure out which one, he came over and he was like, hey, looks like you already know about type advantages, right? And I think there was a choice, like a dialogue choice, but I'm really not sure whether you could select like yes or no. But yeah, he definitely came up and said, hey, I see you already understand super type advantages and stuff like that. And then if there was a dialogue, I selected yes. This is the problem. This is why I should take notes. But then a wonderful thing happened. Nothing. He didn't mention it again. Nobody mentioned type advantages. It's like the game was saying, you know about this, right? Like, you've clearly just used it. You understand it, yeah? We're not going to patronize you. It was beautiful. It's possible that there were other little triggers like that throughout my playtime. I mean, I wasn't exactly zooming through the game at ridiculous light speed, but I also wasn't hanging around because I wanted to make sure that I could play as much as possible in the 90 minutes I had. But, you know, even so, there may well have been certain triggers where I avoided tutorials because I showed that I clearly understood what I was doing. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that conversation I had definitely happened. And it was glorious. And what was really encouraging is that sort of understanding of design and the way that they've designed these Pokemon games. You know, not talking, you know, aesthetically or anything like that, but the way that they're structured to sort of incorporate both new and old players in without them clashing, you know, or, you know, sort of the new players being like, what the hell's going on? And the old players being bored senseless because of the tutorials. They just seem to have thought about a lot of things and taken a lot of, like, technical ideas on board. It's still Pokemon, don't get me wrong, but it seems like they've definitely streamlined things a lot. And, oh, it's good. It still definitely has some hangovers of the Pokemon series, you know, things like characters behaving in very wooden ways when you're talking to them out in the field and stuff like that. It's a bit better than it was in Sun and Moon, but it's still sort of like you talk to someone and they just go... I mean, I'm fairly certain you do see their legs move, but it's not like... It's not a great animation. It's not. It's definitely not a tailored animation. It's all, like, generated and stuff like that. But, you know, it's fine. It's Pokemon. You expect these kind of things. Would have been nice to see a little bit more flourish in that regard. But even so, like, during cutscenes and stuff like that, there is a lot more movement. And there are, you know, I don't want to say there's a lot more cutscenes than Sun and Moon, because that makes it sound like, oh, you're not doing anything. It's all cutscenes. But you're still doing an awful lot. But there are these short cutscenes that really adds some texture and flavor to the experience, which is great. It makes the world feel much more alive, and to be honest, the entire world feels much more alive because there's just more going on, there's just more happening on screen. And it's great. I really like that aspect of the game. And the wild area. The wild area is... It feels distinctly un-Pokemon, to be brutally honest. And you know what? That's a bloody good thing. It's about time we had something that really shook up the formula. And whilst I don't think the wild area is going to make it feel like a completely different game, it still feels like that kind of Pokemon style experience. But the way that you get into it, you know, just the Pokemon battles and stuff like that, the fact that they're flying around and, you know, all the Pokemon are in the grass and stuff like that, it just lifts the experience and makes it much less, I suppose, archaic. It feels much more alive, much more like you're in a real world. Kind of like Let's Go, but even more so. Like they've taken it another step further, which is so encouraging, because that was like the best thing about Let's Go. Seeing the Pokemon out and about, that was glorious. I did a couple of the raid things as well, and like Dynamaxing and that kind of thing. The raids were interesting. It was happening right at the end of my session, and I must admit I was very tired that day, so I wasn't paying an enormous amount of attention, which is terrible. But to be honest, the Dynamaxing, I mean, the raids are a fun idea, but it seems to be a bit woolly. It seems like I didn't have enough time there to sort of properly learn what was going on. There wasn't enough tutorial, ironically, I know. However, I'd much rather learn things sort of slowly over time like that, rather than just, you know, having loads of information slammed at me. Maybe I did have a load of information slammed at me because to be honest, I'm not very good at understanding that kind of thing. Just loads of information thrown at me. I have to kind of sort of play a game in order to properly understand it and learn it. And I think I'm going to get that with the raids. They seem fun and interesting, and really quite a cool way of getting some rare Pokemon that otherwise wouldn't normally appear in the wild area. It's pretty cool. Dynamaxing as a concept, I'm still like, I really don't care. It's fine, you know, it's fine. It's not doing any harm, but at the same time, it just feels like they had to add a gimmick. Here's the gimmick, make Pokemon big. Whoo, yeah. But overall, I was only able to play a very small part of the wild area, but from what I played, it was great. It was really, really good. What isn't so great is the technical side of things. Game Freak clearly don't understand the Switch hardware as well as other companies like Nintendo's internal stuff and all that sort of thing. From a technical point of view, it's really, really quite unimpressive. If you compare it to something like Sun and Moon, then yeah, the worlds look bigger and more expansive than ever before, and there's, you know, sort of just more shrubbery and just more things to look at. The worlds just feel fuller, but at the same time, it's 720p, 30 frames a second, and the art style it's really quite basic, to be honest. I mean, the art style's good, don't get me wrong, and I think the art style helps in the limitations of the resolution and the frame rate. But even so, considering what you're actually looking at on the screen, and when you got stuff like Super Mario Odyssey running at 900p, 60 frames a second, with loads of stuff going on, and it looks great and gorgeous and glorious. It's just, I mean, I know Game Freak is not Nintendo, I'm well aware of that fact, but even so, I just kind of feel like, they went from making some of the most gorgeous games on 3DS, like some real powerhouses. The, you know, Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, they look amazing for the 3DS. And then you just take it over, and it feels like they've gone from being some of the best developers, you know, getting the most out of the hardware, to just being like slap bang average. Not bad, just average. And I kind of expect more from a Pokemon game. Having said all that, that is like my biggest complaint of what I've played so far. Obviously, there's way more of the game to play that I haven't even touched and therefore can't talk about. But even so, I think, you know, well, I forgot to mention, yeah, those trees in the wild area, they're still there. But when my biggest complaint about a game is the fact that visually and technically it's not great for a turn-based RPG, you know what, that's pretty damn tasty overall, and to be honest, I'll take it. And I would much rather any day of the week take design choices that are good and make the game overall better than a presentation side of thing. Presentations is still really important, don't get me wrong, and I am disappointed that it's not more. But I will rather take a functionally much better game over a presentationally graphically impressive game. So I think from that perspective, we have every right to be excited about Pokemon Sword and Shield. I'm much more excited than I was, because I think it's just a lot of the little details have been refined and really improved. A lot of the really sort of horrible sort of hangovers from really old Pokemon games have finally been updated, and it's glorious. Not everything, don't get me wrong, but even so, I am way more excited about Sword and Shield now than I was before. It's looking to be a good, and I really hope that the rest of the game lives up to my expectations. Oh, well, that's what I've got to say about the game, but what do you have to say so far? Try and keep it aside from the national decks, because I did for this video, so you can too. Let us know your thoughts down there in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you take that subscribe button from Ocarina of Time and slap it anyway. And be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.